Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Insider 24 update channel. Peter Bergman, who stars in The Young and the Restless, reveals that Kane's AI program has led to business extortion in Genoa City. The Young and the Restless titans Jack Abbott and Victor Newman are going toe-to-toe against each other, as Victor is determined to make Jack pay for trying to keep Nicky from falling off the wagon. Now, Peter Bergman, Jack's portrayer, is speaking out on the long-running feud. Battle lines for The Young and the Restless. On The Young and the Restless, Peter Bergman plays Jack and Eric Braeden portrays Victor. Sure, they were getting along for a hot second as both Jack and Victor, Eric Braeden, have Kane, Billy Flynn, as a common threat. However, now that Victor has Kane's coveted AI, artificial intelligence, program in his possession, it appears that everything has vanished. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes backstabbing going on in this particular one. Bergman told Soap Opera Digest about the business wars going on in Genoa City. If Jack got his hands on the AI software, could he use it against Victor? It's possible. Victor may not be aware that he despises Jack because it was Jack, not Victor himself, who helped Nicky, Melody Thomas Scott, get through one of her darkest times. Jack truly offered everything for Nicky's benefit. In fact, he put his own sobriety at risk to assist Nicky in remaining on the wagon. Not only did that infuriate Victor, but Diane, Daytime Emmy winner Susan Walters, was miffed that Jack risked his own health to help his ex-wife. Would this latest dynamic be any different if Jack were the one who had the AI software? Perhaps not. Jack recently floated by Diane that they use the AI program against Victor. Diane was more than okay with that. After all, Victor had treated their son, Kyle, Michael Miller, horribly regarding Kyle's romance with Claire, Haley Erin, Victor's granddaughter. Family conflict. On The Young and the Restless, Susan Walters portrays Diane and Peter Bergman portrays Jack. Although Victor is Abby's, Melissa Ordway, father and Jack is Abby's, Melissa Ordway's, uncle, these two business tycoons share very little in common. When Victor was presumed dead, Jack managed to get himself into Victor's chair at Newman Enterprises. When Victor got back from the great beyond, that didn't go over very well. While Jack and Diane are now happily married, viewers of Y&R who have been watching the show for a while may recall Victor seducing Diane away from Jack in the middle to late 1990s. Diane was taken away by Victor in private jets and shown a life she had never known. Jack's heart was broken when Diane married Victor. The honeymoon was over, though, when Victor divorced Diane so he could wed a dying Nicky, who beat the odds and live. The events that transpired on The Young and the Restless. On The Young and the Restless, Eric Braeden portrays Victor. Image source, CBS. After a turbulent trip to Los Angeles, Kyle settled into the Abbott mansion once more. He was looking forward to taking Harrison trick-or-treating and wearing his spooky tandem costume. However, Jack informed Kyle that he'd have to leave the Halloween festivities to the nanny because he was needed elsewhere. Kyle could see the fear in the eyes of Jack and Diane as they expressed their regret for interfering with his time with Claire in Los Angeles. Kyle assumed their tension had something to do with Kane and his AI program, but Jack said it was a much worse threat, it was Victor. Kyle couldn't imagine how Victor seized control of the AI program, and he wondered who could have helped him obtain it. Diane proposed the idea that Kane's AI program was just talk with no action, and the Abbotts increased their cybersecurity. They came up with ideas for dealing with any leaks about the real danger they might have been in. Diane's belief that the program as a whole was nothing more than a ruse caught Jack's attention. He wondered why someone as confident as Victor hadn't launched an attack, so he left to preemptively confront him. Kyle mentioned Noah's accident and apologized to Diane for having to cut short his trip. Diane was unable to even begin to comprehend how distraught they must be after hearing him describe the extent of Noah's injuries. She was shocked Allie hadn't called her grandfather to tell him about the accident. Diane was confident that Kyle and Claire would reconnect, and all he wanted to do was demonstrate to Claire that he was a decent person. He was tired of people getting in the way and wanted more time to put the broken pieces back together. When Kyle talked about the people who were preventing him from reconciling with Claire, Diane inquired as to whom he was referring to. Kyle was aware that he needed to give Claire some space, despite his desire to travel back in time. However, Holden remained in the picture. He knew something was off about him, but Claire was smitten with his charm. Diane wondered if they had any romantic ties to one another. Kyle didn't think so, but he wanted to squash it before it happened. He needed to make her see Holden for who he really was. Kyle apologized for being out of town when Jabot needed him most, but they didn't blame him. Jack believed Kane was genuinely thrown off by the program being stolen, but Kyle didn't think they'd be able to fend off an attack. He inquired as to how they could halt it and destroy it before it completely brought Jabot to its knees. They inquired about any unresolved issues he had in Los Angeles, and despite the fact that things improved, his relationship with Claire remained unresolved. Due to Claire's likely reaction, Diane advised Kyle to halt the investigation into Holden. If Holden was as bad as Kyle viewed him, he needed to let her see it for herself. Kyle shook off her warning, promising to fight with everything he had to illuminate her about his sordid past. Victor saw Phyllis at the GCAC, but Nikki called from Noah's hospital, and Victor answered. He wanted to remain updated about his grandson's well-being, and he also wanted to stay apprised on Nick's interrogation of Sienna. He focused on his new business partner and made a promise to Nikki that Halloween would be better next year. She was prepared for him to carry out his end of the bargain when he inquired about the AI program transfer. She wanted control of Jabot, and Victor was the only man who could make that a reality. Phyllis inquired about Noah's status, but Victor, regrettably, had not provided any encouraging information. He requested she keep word of Noah's accident to herself, and he switched the topic to ask about her sleeping habits. Billy came up to the table before they could continue and asked, "What are you two doing? Just catching up or discussing serious business matters?" Victor asked why Billy was wandering over to their table, but he was ready to take on the mustache. Victor brought up Billy's kids to subdue his rival, and they were quickly joined by Michael. Billy stayed with Phyllis despite Victor's desire for him to leave as soon as possible. Billy joined Phyllis, prepared to fight a potential new foe, as Victor and Michael left for their own table. Phyllis initially acted coy when Billy asked for details about their conversation's context. She played off his concerns and revealed the details of Noah's accident to Billy in an effort to throw him off the scent. Billy promised to get in touch with Nick and Sharon because he thought the accident sounded awful. Billy wasn't sold when he heard Noah had been put into a medically induced coma. Billy was heartbroken. She asked him to keep the news of Noah's injuries to himself, and he was confused about why. Billy settled in and decided to stay for breakfast, despite the fact that Phyllis thought the conversation was over. She requested not to have a breakfast companion and demanded Billy leave the table. Phyllis called Billy disloyal and untrustworthy and a narcissist and didn't want to spend any time with him. Billy asked her to put aside the past, so she asked what his latest venture was. He discussed the relaunch of Abbott Communications, and she assumed Sally was running the show this time. She figured with Billy second in command, the company had the chance to succeed. Billy downplayed Phyllis's future, but she said that she had many opportunities. He asked her to look him in the eye and promise she wasn't working with Victor. She laughed at his allegation because of her contentious past with Victor. He inquired about where she heard it, and she acknowledged that Kane himself had revealed it. Phyllis maintained that Kane and she were more inseparable than ever, and that their bond was irreparable. Billy wanted to keep the focus on Kane, and he discussed the theft of the software, and he asked her if she had any idea who could have been behind it. Billy recognized Phyllis's motivations because he felt like her. He was aware that she felt trapped after experiencing numerous personal and professional setbacks recently. Billy knew Phyllis was the only person who possessed the tools to procure the AI program, but she denied his allegations. She feigned insult because she didn't want to keep explaining herself to Billy. Billy chose to take her word, even if all signs pointed to her being a snake in the grass. He shifted gears and asked Phyllis for her help. She was insulted that he would want her help on anything after unceremoniously kicking her out of Abbott Communications. He felt like it was in Phyllis' best interest to hear him out, and she agreed to hear his pitch. Billy wanted Phyllis to shield Jabot from Victor's assaults by utilizing her unparalleled hacking abilities. He asked her to specify her cost. Michael was perplexed about Victor, Phyllis, and Billy chatting together, but Victor referred to Billy as an uninvited guest. Victor refused to discuss the nature of his conversation with Phyllis, despite Michael's inquiries. The topic shifted to Noah's accident and the possibility of malicious intent. Michael was confused why anyone would want to harm Noah, and asked if anyone had emerged as a prime suspect. Michael reacted in a peculiar manner when Victor asked him to investigate the specifics of the accident. He thought Victor wanted to talk to him on a basic level of friendship, but instead he wanted to use Michael to do his dirty work, which caught him off guard. The idea that he used Michael as a sidekick made Victor laugh. He didn't appreciate Michael's thought process because of the money he's paid him over the years. Victor professed how high he held Michael, and he needed him to help with Noah's accident and get his hands on the police report. Michael requested the name of the detective on the case, but Victor wasn't sure. He also wanted Michael to dig into Sienna and get a clearer picture about her relationship with Noah. Michael agreed to consider Victor's latest offer, but he wasn't ready to make a commitment. He cited his recent marital woes with Lauren as one of the many reasons why working for Victor was risky business. Michael was asked to do it on Noah's behalf by Victor. Michael's hesitance bewildered Victor because he didn't understand why he'd put their past ahead of helping Noah. He eventually agreed to assist Noah in his current situation, but he detested returning to his previous position. Victor condescendingly agreed that that's all there was to it. Michael asked if the news was true that Victor had possession of Kane's AI program. Victor confirmed that to be the case, and Michael wanted plausible deniability, so he waved away any further inquiries. Michael confirmed Victor's happy assumption that Jack would be his first target. He demanded to know why Victor wanted to do this, but it all came back to the night Jack spent in the hotel room with a drunken Nikki. The war ignited that night more intense than ever before, and Victor vowed that he'd pay for what he did. Victor was willing to take the chance, despite Michael's warning that it could explode in front of him. Victor said that no one would stop him from killing Jack Abbott, and he wanted to know if he was on his side. Michael was morally conflicted, but Victor saw things in black and white. There was no in-between because Michael was either on his side or not. Victor requested Michael withhold this from Lauren if he was worried about it impacting their marriage. While Michael was uncertain if he'd agree to work for Victor, he would come clean to Lauren ahead of time. He promised to think about the job offer, but with Noah, he'd be on board with that sooner. Victor welcomed Jack into his residence at the ranch and inquired as to why he was there. "You're not going to get away with this, Victor," Jack promised. Jack revealed he knew Victor had Kane's AI software and warned him he was in for the battle of a lifetime. "I am sick and tired of your constant attempts to undermine me and my family," Jack declared. "It will end right now. You have everything you need to follow me. I'm willing to die on this hill." Victor welcomed the challenge.